Hello everyone, it is Pat with our Oracle card reading and messages for this, well, I guess it's the last few days of March going into April. And I am also going to be doing an additional reading, as I have before, for an April, May, June reading with some different card decks to get more of a, because what I found is that there was that card reading that I mentioned before that I did back in the middle of January for, kind of January, February, March. And as I think back to that, it keeps coming to my mind more and more because some of the things that came out in that reading, have come to pass, and it's always so interesting because of the way things come to us during a reading and how they actually transpire. They're very similar, not always exact, but I remember in that reading, I talked about March, there being some storms because the wind activation card came out. And there actually have been, and I mentioned tornadoes, and there have been 3 different tornadoes this month in different areas of the country. So anyways, I'll be doing a more expanded card reading with those cards again a little bit later. But for this week, let's see what we've got. I've gone ahead and pulled some cards in the interest of time. And as you know, I always call upon the archangels first to see who's working with us for the week and what their message is for us. So I guess in some ways it wasn't a surprise. There's 2 that came out this week for us. The first one was Archangel Jophiel with the message of patience. Okay. Urging and reminding us to be patient with this. I mean, many of us are under shelter in place orders, only essential workers going to work. We're all a little tense. We're doing the best we can with these situations that we're in. It's just going to take, it's a reminder about patience. We're going to need a little bit more patience this week in dealing with the situations that we're in and in the, countrywide and worldwide situation. We're going to need patience with our leaders, patience with the measures that have been taking place, patience with each other. And I know we're all wanting to we all know at some point we will get past this. And we're wanting it to happen as soon as it can. But we do have to be patient. There are people working behind the scenes. There are measures that are, as we know, have been put in place that seem to be working. So patience is the message from Archangel Jophiel. And we can call upon her for help with that patience, to slow down and just be present with things as they're going on. And what's interesting in this picture is she has the image of, tending the garden, and be patient with things just like you would be when you plant seeds in your garden and you water them to grow. So, what's taking place now still needs our continued and consistent help. It still needs our consistent nurturing. And it's a good time also to garden. I know that's what I'm going to be doing. The other card that came out from the archangels is Haniel, sensitivity. And obviously we have to be patient with our sensitivity because many people who are very sensitive, intuitively sensitive, empathically sensitive, can feel, the, discomfort and the stress that is going on in the world right now because it's going on throughout the world, because there is our collective groups of people that are feeling, stress, strain, fear, anxiety, what have you. So it's just a reminder that sometimes, the high level of stress, the high level of anxiety that we're feeling isn't always entirely ours. We're picking it up from the world. So, and the many groups of people that are feeling that. So, it's a reminder to take care of yourself. The card itself says you are, I need my glasses. You are extra sensitive to energies and emotions right now. So honor yourself and your feelings. And it can be, and Haniel's outside in this picture, and that's always a good place to go to do that, to honor yourself and your feelings. Okay? So, and you can call upon those archangels for help with those issues, okay? Patience and sensitivity. And, we've all been kind of, if you've been in shelter in place, you've been cooped up with people for a long time that, maybe having to spend much more time with them than what you usually do. So we're all kind of a little sensitive to each other in the sense we might be getting irritated, feeling irritated, or a little bit irritable. That's understandable too. We all have to have just a little more patience. So that's what's going on this week. Now, as far as I chose from 2 different card decks, Saints and Angels, as for what was coming up this week, as well as Archangel Michael, okay? So for the beginning of the week, we have St. Padre Pio with this message of healing, a reminder that healing is taking place. St. Padre was a well-known healer. He experienced the stigmata, and people often went to see that and see him to experience, their own physical healing. So there is healing taking place amongst many people. But Archangel Michael's message is admit the truth to yourself and take action accordingly. So it also indicates that there's just some harsh truths that we are going to need to be facing, that this whole virus thing and everything about it has brought to light, okay? Harsh truths about, ourselves, our environment, other people around us, our government, our world, our level of preparedness. We've gotten a big kick in our complacency in many ways. So this card from Archangel Michael is about having the courage to face those truths about yourself, your situation, the world, what have you. And it's not easy, but the best way to get things to change is to admit the truth, whatever that truth is, and then to start taking action. It's a realization card is what I get. It's when you have realizations about something, okay? And that realization can be in either direction. It can be the realization that something is, toxic and not a right situation for you anymore. Or it can be the realization that, I was so much better off when I was doing this and I'm not doing it right now or something like that. But it's a realization card in the sense of admitting the truth of that and not skimming over it, okay? And that truth, admitting that truth is very healing. And it might be, for some of you, admitting the truth about the steps that you're going to have to take. That's why it says to take action accordingly. It's that realization or awareness. It's like, wow, I have to admit that, either I'm not well or that I'm going to have to take measures to rearrange my situation. Maybe if you're somebody who had been going into work, maybe you realize you suddenly can't because you have something else, somebody to take care of or what have you, or your situation has changed. It's something along those lines. It's a realization card is what I get, but it's one that brings healing and is still helping the healing process. And there's healing going on at many levels for a lot of people, individually as well as collectively. All right. And for some of you out there, it's heart healing. If you've lost someone, all right, either to the virus or something else, there's some heart healing going on. That's taking place. So that's part of why Haniel gave us that message of sensitivity, because of what's taking place, because of the loss that's going on. We have to honor ourselves and our feelings because we are feeling very sensitive to everything right now. Okay. So, middle of the week, we got the cards Child and God is in charge. Okay. So, what I get about this, the child in this card is very happy. He's playing music. And a lot of us out there, a lot of people out there are having to be at home with their children a lot more. They've the shelter in place and with the kids being home from school. So they may be playing a lot more with their children, maybe even playing instruments. But I also feel like this has to do with people who are concerned about children. That card has many meanings. And, there were concerns about children at the border. who are in those cages, and babies coming in, women who are pregnant and having, giving birth at this time with this virus thing going around. And, the card, God is in charge, I find often shows up when, we just have to surrender control. There are things that are out of our control, and we just have to put it in the hands of the divine. We have to turn it over and surrender it. And so it's often an indication, it's both a message of what to do and an indication of what we are doing, because, we do realize that, there's nothing that we can do other than pray for our children, and surrender that, put it in God's hands, that act of surrender. I want to read a little bit from this, let's see, child. Okay. It's about paying attention to children in your care, the child in you, people helping children. But I know there are some of us too who have maybe children in medical, they've been in school, in college for a medical major. They're going to be a nurse or a doctor or something like that. And because of what's taken place, they haven't been able to, they're not formally graduating, they haven't finished their studies, but they're being called into work. And, for us, it's still our children. And they're it reminds me of when, during World War II, I know my own father, as soon as he turned 18, he didn't get to finish school. They called him right in and drafted him. And, us adults look at that as those are our children that are going in, they're being called into the trenches. And I know many people have referred to this virus as being like a war in a way, a battle that we're fighting. But so it's about surrendering that, God is in charge. God is overseeing the whole thing. There are some things that are just out of our control and we have to let go. And let me read from Archangel Michael. I love the way this card is worded. God is in charge. It's a reassuring message that God is in charge, taking care of all the details. Give any worries and stop struggling against the flow. There is a natural course that this situation is taking, and it's important to trust that things are going in the right direction because they are, okay? And it's a card, again, of reassurance, letting you know that your prayers have been heard and answered. So there's a bit of surrendering going on midweek, as often happens when there are situations that are out of our control. All we can do and work with is what's right in front of us, and the rest of it we have to turn over. So at the end of the week, the cards that came out for us was Mother Teresa with activism and focus on health, okay? So what I feel about that as we come to the end of the week is it's going to be starting to become apparent that many of the measures that have been put in place, like these stay-at-home, shelter-in-place orders, they are showing some effectiveness, a decrease in the rise of the amount of cases, et cetera, and helping us to come towards that, what they call that apex. But people are also, activism is about, people taking charge or making movements towards social justice. As we all know, Mother Teresa was a big activist and advocate for the horribly poor and hungry in India, okay? But the activism has to do with our health and focusing on getting people well and reducing the spread of this virus, and people focusing on taking care of their own health in whatever way they can. So that is the focus as we come into the weekend, but with a lot more, there's a big level of activism behind it. I I think you're going to see more leaders step forward. Okay. We all know in this past week, because of the New York being the epicenter, and every day Governor Cuomo has been doing updates about what they're doing, the progression of cases, and et cetera, et cetera. I think we're going to see more people and leaders similar to him, maybe not necessarily governors, but other people coming forward, leading the charge, leading the activism, and to focus on bringing our health back into balance. Okay. There's a lot more energy around it as we move into the weekend. Okay. And some of that activism I think may have to do with the children too, especially maybe the children down at the border. So we'll see how it all plays out. But and certainly if you feel called to speak up, or called to that activism, don't ignore that tapping on your shoulder. But that's my sense of it. As we get into the weekend, there's going to be a lot more, a little bit more clarity about the measures that we're taking, how they're working, and getting active to bring things under control, okay, as best we can. And what I like about this card is and she's also praying. I mean, prayer is a form of activism too, but she's got the rays of light coming out of her hands here. And that by the end of the week, next weekend, we're going to start to see those rays of light and hope in what's going on with this whole thing, okay? So those are some of the messages that I get for this upcoming week, okay? Obviously, this virus and dealing with it is still at the center of things for people. And, in our world, everybody's still very concerned about that. And they're concerned about their children. But there's a lot of healing and facing truths. God is taking care of things, especially our children and what's going on with them. Because a lot of us have kids who are due to graduate. And, they're missing some of those celebrations, those joyful celebrations. And ultimately, it will all work out. I feel like a lot of people in a lot of communities will, once this starts to subside and we can go back to more of our normal routines, we'll make sure that our kids are taken care of. And, if we let go and let God, it'll work out in a beautiful way, okay? And anyways, as we get into the weekend, there's a lot more activism around things. So anyways, I hope this finds you well. I look forward to speaking with you again soon. And again, I'll be putting up a reading for that's an outlook of the next 3 months to see what's going on. All right, take care, everyone. Be well.